Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the episode of Just Say Guay. I'm your host, George Guay. Today I'm joined by David Tyree. You may know him as the guy who has the greatest catch in Super Bowl history. It's right behind him in that painting. David, thank you so much for coming on the show, and how are you?
Pleasure to meet up, George. How's it going, buddy?
Yeah, thank you for doing this. Given where I was in my life at the time with this catch, I was about 8 years old. Can't believe we're here now. Thank you for doing this. So when I say that you have the greatest catch in Super Bowl history that ended the perfect season of my New England Patriots, who are struggling right now, but what does that mean to you nowadays?
No, it means the world. I think when you grow up as a kid, you fall in love with a sport, and it gives you that kind of direction, meaning, and purpose early on. You want to be the best. You want to be a part of something special. So obviously having that pursuit at the professional level, finding different layers of success, but it was really a struggle for me as a wide receiver, finally getting that moment of validation. So for me, in one moment, my entire um, you know, life's work of football was met with tremendous fulfillment at not just winning a Super Bowl, but getting a chance to play a significant role and actually have a part in the history of the NFL and one of the classiest organizations with the Giants. So it means a lot. It's a gift from God, and I just try to steward it, man.
Yeah, what a moment. Still lives on forever. Still about 15 years later, it still is the greatest moment in Super Bowl history, and I'm willing to admit that as a Patriots fan. I know a lot of people in New England might not want to. They might want to say Malcolm Butler, but I think it still is you. So let's just
Yeah, big,
backtrack
big, big, classy guy for that, man.
for sure. So let's just backtrack. You're a sixth-round pick for the Giants. You come in right before Tom Coughlin comes into the
Yep.
Giants. You guys are really trying to build something, and eventually you guys have a couple tough seasons, but make the playoffs after an 11-5 season. In terms of building towards the Super Bowl, how important was that season in terms of just building up to that?
Yeah, it was clearly the first year, especially it was polar opposites from Jim Fossil to Tom Coughlin. Jim was very came off with a lot of bravado, players coach kind of disposition, had his measure of success, but obviously the walls crumbled, and Tom Coughlin was the enforcer, super disciplined. We even reported him. I can remember the first year the team reported him to the union. So we I think we went 6-10 his first season, but the next year we were 11-5, and we were starting to see the fruit of the grind and the labor. But the biggest difference in that championship run was a belief and a sense of, does this guy really actually even care about us? Does he listen to us? And that was where the walls came down, when he really created some lines of communication from leadership, and players just kind of felt heard, and there was a deeper sense of buy-in, and relationships started to melt together because we had an amazing roster, and it just took a few pieces from strong leadership to some young amazing draft clash, and the sauce all came together.
Yeah, and into that Super Bowl season, you guys had such a good start. I believe you guys won 6 in a row at one point.
Yeah.
Bit of a fall off going into the playoffs. I know you guys were probably thinking, hey, we could be the 1 seed, but eventually you guys had to look at yourselves and say, hey, if we want to win the Super Bowl, we got to win 3 road games just to get there. And New England's probably going to be there. I know you guys beat them or lost them in the regular season in a close game. What was the mindset just going into that, knowing that we're not going to have a home game, and if we want to get this done, it's going to be the hardest challenge possible?
Yeah, I think it was really just one game at a time, man. It was kind of the chopping wood mentality where, the opportunity is so unique. It's actually just so hard to win these games in the National Football League. But I think once we clinched in Buffalo, we really wanted to get that last regular season game, and we took them to the 12th round, and they were just good enough to beat us. So going into Tampa, there was just a lot of belief. We just felt unequivocally we were a better team, even though they were a solid opponent. We had to go out on the road and get it. And everything else from there was familiar opponents. So I think our team began to galvanize at the right time, late in that stretch, where it was just an infusion of stubborn belief in one another, and having a pedigree offensively and defensively to be able to find ways to win games in tight in tough situations. So it was all on the road. It was all gritty. It was all resilience. It was all heart. But it was the people in that locker room and that organization that just came together and rallied around what we believe was something special.
for sure. And what a playoff run going into that Super Bowl. I mean, you guys beat Dallas
Yep.
and the rivals, and that's when Terrell Owens kind of cried after the game at the post. I don't think anyone ever saw that, given just how much of an alpha he was in the league. But
Yeah.
you guys going to Green Bay, it's 0 degrees out. That's where they thrive. I know it's cold in New York sometimes, but that's where they think they're going to win the game, playing Green Bay. 2 missed field goals, tines misses. You guys got to go in overtime. You guys didn't fall apart. I mean, how did you guys make all that work to know that, hey guys, we can actually still win the game and it's not over?
Yeah, it's definitely one of those like mental roller coasters, right? Because when you're sending out field goal kickers to win a game, you're expecting those guys to make it, right? Like you're not expecting a second opportunity. So of course, when you're in that level toward the fourth quarter action and overtime, it's really tense. So when you're seeing these missed field goals, it's like there's still hope, there's still a chance. And honestly, at a certain point, you actually just have an unwavering belief that we're called to this. We have to find a way to pull this out. And I think that's some of the narrative. But we were just at a position where we had so much built up belief and equity. It was a perfect balance of, strong leadership, emerging talent, and people playing their best football at the right time. Of course, Eli Manning coming down the stretch, a strong rookie class. It was really a tremendous mess. So Green Bay definitely brought, I think it was -23 with the wind chill. It was, I mean, Coughlin's face is, I mean, like bloody purple, true glass of Chardonnay. But it was just an impeccable experience of wavering belief. And when it came time to make the play, those people rise up. I think everybody remembers that Lawrence Tyne. He didn't even get a chance to. He ran out there for that last game-winning drive. It wasn't even a conversation. By the time Coughlin turned around, he was already on a run. He had that kind of stubborn belief that regardless of what happened before, he was going to be able to make this play now. No, that's kind of how it all came together.
Yeah, what a memorable game. I mean, at that point, you guys are throwing a rock around, not a football, given how cold it was, and just
It was definitely that. I think it was one of the best performances I ever seen from not statistically, but grit, Plaxico Burress. Like he was one of those amazing, game breakers. But Plaxico was one of those dudes that was just such a physical enigma, but he really proved something to me on a whole nother level with his play in that game. I mean, he took some ridiculous hit from Atari Bigsby. Played against one of the best corners. Was given, I believe, it was Al Harris. Just totally, him and Eli were just the chemistry in the play at that level was really dynamic given those circumstances. We talk about passing the ball, big time players making big time plays. The only reason why I like to forget that I felt like I should have had a touchdown in that game as a wide receiver myself. And a pretty good, pretty young playmaker, Tramon Williams, was able to jar it out of my hands. So I like to get past that and get straight to the Super Bowl. That's my memories, other than making a couple special teams tackles.
yeah. And what a game! I mean, it's just to look back on. And the crazy thing is, your amazing memory of talking about how Eli and Plaxico, that game. You remember it so much, but in that playoff run, what remembers the most is what happens in the next game. So take me through the mindset of going into Super Bowl 42, because you guys actually almost handed the Patriots their first loss in the last week of the regular season, but still, a lot of people discounted that. I think you guys were like 12.5-point underdogs, and
Yeah.
this was Brady's chance at a 4th Super Bowl. It seems like no one was stopping that defense. A lot of people are picking against you. I think most people. What's the mindset just in practice to say, hey guys, we can do this?
We have everything to gain, right? And really the biggest thing for us internally is we know that we belong and we know that we can beat this team. And when you go kind of head to head with a Titan, right? There was a song in my era by Notorious B.I.G. and it was Negroes bleed just like us. And it was old classic song. And that's the kind of mindset, is like, we're gonna draw blood. We already drew blood, and they were actually good enough to beat us. But this time we got the keys to break this down. And I think our defense, the first game was an offensive shootout, and this game was a defensive shootout. And so for us, there was nothing in our mind that actually considered losing. And I think, that's the bottom line. I think from the outside noise, um, it was so much history at stake. It was so much lore and build up with and deservedly so. It's one of the best teams ever in the National Football League history, and they didn't even win a Super Bowl. So I think I can be honest to actually agree with it, how dominant they were throughout the season. But at the end of the day, that's the unique part about sports, even more so the game of football. You get one opportunity to prove it in between those lines. And yes, there's a lot that really came together. I felt like from like, man, we were destined for something special. You can say that easier on the backside of it. But I think the belief that we had, the work ethic that we put in, and the playmaking in clutch areas really came together in that football game to give us a chance against a better roster, if you want to say that. But we were the better team that Sunday, and that's all that mattered.
Yeah, any given Sunday, and that's the thing about sports with hockey, basketball, football, baseball. You got to play the game,
Oh,
and you got to finish the season out. So just what was just the key to your guys' defense that day? And what I was so amazed about is just I watched so many games that season for the Patriots just on offense annihilate other teams. The first game with Moss and Brady, I think, Brady went perfect, or that first half might have been the Miami game, but just touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. I think they
yeah.
only had a few close calls that year just in terms of losing. I know your team was one of them, but you guys were the first defense to hold them under 7 going into the fourth quarter. And
Yeah.
I guess going into the fourth, that's when you guys realized we can win it. And what was the key to defense that week?
I mean, I think we had the perfect mix of players. You talk about one of the best players ever, Michael Strahan. Justin Tuck was an emerging titan at that time. He was young, he was healthy, he was strong as an ox, could play inside, play outside. Fred Robbins was one of the most underrated defensive tackles in the NFL at that time. Quite a pass rush defensive tackle specialist, and we had OC Umenyiora. You had some young talent that gave us a strong rotation. A lot was talked about in relation to the NASCAR, and so, but even more so, we had leaders. We had big time players at every level. When you talk about a strong defense, you want to have playmakers at every level. Antonio Pierce is actually putting his medal now. Now we're seeing him as the head coach of the Vegas Raiders, but he was actually the heart and soul of that Steve Spagnuolo defense, because he had the intellectual capacity and the nuance to put people in positions on the move and still stay within the scheme of that defense. And he was kind of one of those, I wouldn't even call him unsung hero, because he was a captain and a high end leader on the team, but not given the credit that he rightly deserved. And we, like I said, and we just had talent at every position, big time playmakers. And I think that was the key. It was that defense being able to get to Tom Brady, and that's what the Patriots did throughout his career, was keep him safe, keep him safe. And if you kept Tom safe, he will dice you up, without a shadow of a doubt. So I think, things definitely came together for us, being able to rush inside, blitz packages, and find ways to pressure on Tom in different ways.
Yeah, you guys really set the blueprint on how to beat Brady specifically. I saw that a lot in those AFC Championship games against Baltimore. The Ravens' physical defense took it to
There you
Tom.
go.
They definitely took a page or two out of your guys' notebook. So, yeah, what a game that was. And I just want to get into the catch now. That's
Sure.
a huge thing. So before we get into you catching the ball, I just want to know, what was your route on the play? And did you have to change it once Eli crazily escaped from that pressure? Because I think everyone thought he was going down at that point. I mean, 4 Patriots defenders on him. Somehow he escaped, but did you have to change your route on that play?
Yes, we pretty much call it a scramble drill, right? And I think was cool about, I know we talk about the NFL being scripted, but there's a lot of things that are practiced, right? Like, and like quarterbacks, there's 2 plays within every play, especially with a pass play. And I'm not even counting audible, but if a quarterback ends up scrambling, I'm running a post route. The play call was actually 76 max union wide sail. And that just told me we had a sail concept with Steve Smith's on the inside running the outbreaking route, deep 15-yard out, and I'm running a post over the top. It was actually a perfect play for the defense the Patriots played. They ran a lot of 42 coverage, two deep safeties on one side and a deep half safety on the other. And we had it actually was a pretty pretty well drawn up play for their coverage. But none of it mattered because, you know, we didn't block anybody, and the offensive line olayed a bunch of players, and Eli becomes Vanilla Vic, and it was the improv. It was really just the improv, and it goes back to backyard football as a kid. So it wasn't necessarily running another route. It was really I'm running a deep route, and I got to get in phase with my quarterback. So I do break that route off. I find some green patch green patch of grass a little bit toward the middle of the field, and man, he just gave a good old Jersey boy a shot at glory. And Chariots of Fire is going back in the background, Duracell flow, and we make the helmet catch.
Yeah, unbelievable play. I just it's still fresh with me just because I've been spoiled as a Patriots fan, but I'm sure you hear Tom Brady talk about that Super Bowl. That's the one he wants back, and he's even said he'll trade some for that Super Bowl. I mean, just what a catch you made, and I just want to know. I've wanted this answer pretty much my whole life. How did you catch it? Because you had Rodney Harrison on you. Other than Cam Chancellor, probably the baddest safety in the game this century. He's trying to hit the ball out. You still hold on. How did you catch it?
Yeah, I think it's two things. It was really just a battle of the will. Of course, when you're known for one specific moment, it's really easy for people to just kind of slight your whole career and your journey. I was obviously a special teams player. I had been a third wide receiver in the past. I had been a fifth wide receiver in the past. So just, throughout my career, I was always looking for that moment of validation. So on one end, I knew what it was to have few opportunities and how I needed to maximize every opportunity I had. So that was the natural side. Honestly, there was I call it providence. I will never equate it to luck because it was too meaningful. It was too meaningful to me. It was too meaningful to the team. It was too meaningful to the history of the sport. And a unique, really cool personal story I would say is the night before the game, one of my teammates' mom was actually a pastor in Florida somewhere. She's actually like a congressman now or something like that. And she prayed, we prayed and just trying to get a blessing for the game. And she said, David, God is quickening your feet. He's giving you hinds feet like the feet of a deer to jump high. Then she said, God's putting spiritual glue on your hands. I'm like, okay, cool, take some glue. And then the last thing he said is, the Lord's going to give you the big play. Now, I'm a believer. And so, of course, I'm praying and believing God for a blessing. It's the biggest game of my life. And she shares and declares and prophesies these words. And I'm just believing God for something great to happen. Now, her husband gets on the phone and says, the world's no longer going to remember you as a special team player, but as a wide receiver. Now, mind you, I literally do believe God. So it's like, how are you going to do this? I don't know. I'm thinking maybe I block a punt in the game. Maybe call, and they actually did call the play that was designed for me because I did have a play designed for me. I scored go ahead for a touchdown, the most forgotten touchdown in Super Bowl history in the fourth quarter. So, when people tell me all I did was one play, I said, man, you must not have watched the whole game. Give me a credit for at least the touchdown that I scored as a go ahead in the fourth quarter. But at the end of the day, there was a sovereign providential moment for me. So how I caught the ball is you got to believe in miracles. You got to have an undying will to kind of have that crowning moment in your life. And I think that's not just for me, that's for anybody.
Yeah, that's a great answer. A lot of good things coming together and a lot of good things that lead up to it. Preparation, faith, like you said, you just go well at the right time. And it's great that you admire all aspects of that. And what a moment. So other than winning the game, I got to give you guys a lot of credit because once you guys and that play happened, the game wasn't over. You guys still had to score, right? It was, wow, what a play, but we still got to make this happen. And I saw this many years later, Patriots versus the Seahawks. Jermaine Kearse makes a crazy catch.
Man,
same stadium as you guys, and I'm thinking,
same stadium. That's right.
Yeah, we're gonna lose again. This is David Tyree over again. I'm at my house where we're watching the Super Bowl. We're saying David Tyree all over again, and here we are talking about it. But Seattle lost focus, and you guys didn't. How did you guys keep your composure? Because soon later, Plaxico Burress scores a game-winning touchdown, and you guys go ahead.
Yeah, honestly, the game's not over. I mean, it's really that simple. Even upon making the catch, I never knew what actually happened. I never knew till I got back to the hotel. So immediately, even at the catch, I got to look on the sideline and see what's next. Am I even in the game? No, actually, they put in a tight end, and we go to 3 wides. So this is only I've been a part of too many great positive experiences, and when you don't get the victory, it's meaningless. And it might be good for filling your stat sheet, seasonal stats, but the most important statistic is to win the game. So when Mexico catches that football, we got to go ahead. Of course, we're feeling, but Tom had some amazing, even those deep heaves down to Randy Moss were absolutely terrifying. They were terrifying. We're fingers crossed, praying down on our knees, as Tom's throwing a haymaker. Obviously, we felt good about the Jay Alford sack, but he positioned some throws in some really dangerous places, even knowing that we're in like full prevent. So obviously, it's not over till the confetti's popping up in the air and you're victorious. We're fortunate to have that experience too.
Yeah, you bring that up, how Tom can get the ball down there. We saw that in the loss against the Eagles, like inches from Gronk catching it, and just shows how strong the quarterback's arms are. So take me through just winning it. You guys pull off the greatest upset in Super Bowl history, probably the greatest upset in the major four sports. I don't think I've seen a bigger upset in sports since that game. We'll see what happens many years down the road, but this is it. This is the biggest upset right now, definitely in my life so far. How did it feel to just put on that Super Bowl championship hat and the shirt, and you guys beat the Patriots, but you're bringing a championship back to New York City?
I think it's all of those factors to me, which makes this to me the greatest play in Super Bowl history. Period. NFL ranked it at 3. I just think from a standpoint of storyline, obviously the sport was, the NFL was really growing to be amazing product at this point. Whereas immaculate reception, all that good stuff. I gotta argue my own case. But I think we talk about storyline, undefeated team on the deck, one of the best teams ever. And you consider the underdog narrative, a team that's actually went on the road to win all its playoff games, defeated two teams that beat us handily in the first 2 games of the season. It was a redemptive victory. But at the end of the day, when you really feel like you're a team of destiny, and you know that the only reason that you're starting your season is to win a championship, it's every reason I signed up for this as a kid. So it's really an overwhelming moment. People ask me how I felt. I was like, I was in awe. I had every emotion that you could imagine. I cried, I laughed, I did confetti angels. I was sat around bewildered. I was in awe. So obviously someone has to lose. You never wish that upon anyone other than the person that you're actually up against. So that day it was the New England Patriots, but they were an amazing team. And like I said, it was nice to see Tom come back and get 3 more, and kind of exercise those demons in the same place where it started. So I know him and Eli had some fun banter, but it was special to be a part of that narrative.
Yeah, and I'm sure Tom at the moment was like, wow, last year I lose in heartbreak in a horrible collapse to the Colts, and then next year I got to deal with Eli Manning. And it wasn't the first time. I mean, we saw a few years later, Mario Manningham gets that great catch, and they win the Super Bowl again. It's just the New York Giants. How about that? So take me through back in New York. You guys bring home a championship. It wasn't the first for the Giants, but the first in a while. And it's probably one of the best places to win a championship just because of how much support you have. And like you said, the narrative leading up to it as well.
Yeah, New York City is like I said, it's the toughest place to be a loser. It's the greatest place to be a winner. And it's an authentic city, meaning like they really love you, but they really have the greatest expectations, and the goal is to take on the heart of the city. This was the epicenter of the growth of America, the Statue of Liberty, everything that personifies. And I think Boston has its arguments as well, historically. But when you think about the birthplace of a nation, it's very hard to disconnect that from New York City and all the nationalities being blended in this amazing city. So Canyon of Crows, I mean, like it's just the mecca of meccas from an overwhelming experience. I can remember it, but it's still so hard to capture and explain how unique it is to win in New York City, but how hard it is, because they're not going to cut you any slack. They're not going to stroke your ego when times are hard. They're going to demand the best of their athletes and their leaders. So when you give the chance to give the city back this moment, it's the most crowning reward. I still feel like I'm owed a few steaks and some, some dinners. I didn't get out and hit the circuit as much as I needed to, but we'll get around to it, man. There's still more time.
Yeah, and you're forgetting that you beat the city's ultimate rival, which is Boston. And
Absolutely. It couldn't be a better storyline. I know it's probably a little bit of a deeper dig in baseball, America's pastime. It's grown to be just as rich in the NFL, considering the battles Eli and Tom had. So it's gotten pretty intense.
yeah, I couldn't imagine what it must have been like, because there were just so many Patriots fans when we played you guys again. We're like, oh, we're gonna get them. We got Brady and Gronk. We're not gonna lose again, and it just happened. And New York definitely has something to say about beating the Patriots. So, a couple more questions. Something I
Sure.
want to talk about. What's it like for you just seeing big Super Bowl plays these days? Plays like Edelman against the Falcons, where a crazy catch, like, and especially in a game where people thought it was over. Jermaine Curse, uh,
Yeah,
Malcolm Butler, just a lot of guys stepping up to the occasion and making a name for themselves. What's it
sure.
like for you seeing it from afar?
It's pretty amazing. The only way I can say this and kind of toot my own horn is the humble side says, man, it's great to be in the conversation of great moments. I just think that my moment is set apart because of a unique narrative that is going to be very difficult to capture again. But also, when I'll be honest with you, I think Edelman's is the second best catch that we've seen in current day. I know Santonio Holmes is up there. Maybe one day we'll make a catch coalition, a catch committee, or something like that together. But I think of things like that. I think when you talk about what makes these games great, it's these amazing iconic plays. Even I would even put, even though it's a defensive play, James Harrison's play. These memorable, iconic moments that are seared in the conscience of sports fans across the world. And when I consider the history, I think I was fortunate where Steve Sabol was still alive. You think about the history of the NFL films, and being able to measure all these moments. I actually got a sign off from Steve Sabol that said this is the greatest play in Super Bowl history. So I kind of take that to the bank. That's kind of like my red card for any conversation. God rest his soul. When you think about the history of the National Football League and the footage to go with it, I got the Steve Sabol card. I'm riding with that. So it's been some amazing moments though. It's great.
Yeah, definitely. And just for me personally, it was great to see the Edelman catch, just to be like, you know what, we caught a break in that way. Now things are turning for us now. I know we've had some Super Bowls, but in the previous years, but that was good for us to have. So my last question is just, I'm just wondering how you treated in New York and even in Boston. It's just when people hear you're David Tyree, I know that you definitely got to make dinner reservations sometimes. How does that
Yeah.
all work for you?
I haven't been to Boston much at all. I got 7 beautiful kids, so I've been bogged down raising a family, blessed working. I was in the front office with the Giants up to 2020. Now I'm starting to do a little bit more travel. I keynote and I do leadership consulting, so hopefully I'll get around there and find some ways to impact some groups. But I know I'm not celebrated in in the New England area, so I'll be cautious and careful. Maybe I have to go under an alias. Uh, Make sure they're not spiking my drinks and doing anything crazy up there. But amazing fan base. One of the most successful fan bases across sports. It's kind of hard to say that, but from a objective vantage point, it's pretty cool. In New York, it's crazy love once people find out who I am. I'm a low road guy, man. I'm a Jersey boy, so I've been here my whole life. I've never had this deep desire to be like, celebrity. So I don't kind of like name drop a lot, but it's a lot of love and appreciation when people figure out who I am. And every now and then there's, some an extra little treat or trinket that goes along with it. So I'm definitely in a different space in the last few years, getting out in the marketplace a little bit more. So I'm excited.
Yeah, for sure. And to be honest, I think it'd be okay in Boston for you, just because there's been so many athletes where we've had tough moments with and losing, and it's all worked out okay. And I think it would have been a lot more challenging for Patriots fans if we had never won again. But yeah, I think it would be just fine. But David, thank you so much for doing this. We'll stay in touch, and thanks again.
Appreciate it, man. You have a great one.